Welcome to this little tutorial. It is about how to make a bow in Marvelous Designer for your clothing. And this is actually the simple bow that I'm going to make today. Most of the techniques that I use to make this bow, they can actually be used to make other ones as well. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the centerpiece. So when I say the center bow, I mean this one here, which gets wrapped around the loops. And this, of course, is the loop. So the first thing I'm going to do, like I said, is create that center bow. So choosing my create a rectangle, I'm going to left click. For the width, I'm going to put in 15. And for the height, I'm going to put in 75. Now these numbers can be whatever you want them to be to fit the bow that you're going to be making. This just happens to be the one that fits what I'm doing here. So let me just move this over and line it up a little bit. Alright, also you can see that I do have the lengths of my lines on. How I did that was simply right clicking the background and turning on show line length, in case you want to know how to do that. Also for this project, I've done two things. One is to turn off the sync, because syncing only makes it show up in the actual 3D window, this one here, and we really don't need to see the results in this window until later, and this will save us from getting that progress bar all the time. So the first thing I need to do when I create this piece is I need to get it set up to accept the other pieces that are going to be going with it. I'm going to have to add internal lines to sew the bow piece to the actual shirt itself. And so let me come up here and create an internal line with this very first tool. When I hover it, do you see what it says there? It says create internal polygon line or something like that. And I'm going to scroll way in so that I can click right here on this edge. And you don't have to do it right on the top, just underneath it is good. Holding shift, click and click to place that one. I'm going to use Control C and Control V to copy it and paste it. I'll hold shift to bring it directly down and left mouse click to drop it right there at the edge. So that's a start. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add an internal line about halfway across the center here. It's not always needed to have here, but I'm going to show you how you can use a line to help get your piece of fabric to bend in the way that you want it to. So this is the front of our fabric, or it will be when we bring it in the 3D window. I'm going to want this side to fold outward, so I'm going to use an internal line to do that. I'm simply copying with Control C and V one of my other lines, holding shift and placing it right there in the middle. So let's go ahead and get this line set up, and I can explain it a little bit more as we use it. In the actual property editor, you'll see that we have line information when we have a line selected. The fold strength I usually kick up just a little bit to make sure that I get the effect that I want. And this again is a temporary internal line. I'm going to take the fold angle down to zeros. When your fold angle is at 180, it's not there now, but when it starts out at 180, that means the fabric is completely flat. When you bring this down to 0, that means that the front of the fabric is going to pucker out. When you take this up to 360, it means the reverse side of the fabric will pucker out a crease wherever that line is. So again, I want to take this down to 0. Fold rendering doesn't matter for this project if it's on or off. This simply allows you to see the effects of the line. Puts the line crease right there for you to see. So that doesn't matter at this point. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare for the loops. Oh wait, one more thing. I also need to take one of these internal lines and I have to put it on the shirt front because that is what I'm going to use to anchor or sew this center bow loop to. So using Control V, I still have my internal line on my clipboard. I can hold my mouse right there and left mouse click, and now it's placed directly where I need it. Also, I don't want to sew all of my bow center to my shirt just yet. I want it to start folding on its own before I sew up the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sewing line from the bottom internal seam to the internal seam here on the shirt. That's just going to anchor it at the bottom, and this whole piece will just kind of like just dangle down from the front of the shirt. The next thing that I'm going to do is start to create my loops. My loops are going to be made 10 high, and I'm going to double this length here, 75 to 150 for the width of my bow piece, my loop. So creating another rectangle, left mouse clicking, I'll choose 150 for the width, and I'll choose 10 for the height. Now, that looks like an awful thin loop, I know, but I want these to be a specific size. I really don't care how tall the center is right now. I just need the ends to be this tall. So I'm going to take this piece and just move it down a little. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to split both of these ends in half. And I'll explain that to you in just a second as to why I'm doing that. Split and uniform, and there we go. Okay, so now when this bow hangs and I end up sewing it so that both ends attach to the shirt right here, both ends, the seam will be against the shirt and the smooth loop will be around it. And again, if I show you this picture, you see this is a smooth loop here, and where it's attached to the shirt underneath is where that seam is. So what I want to do is have this edge sewn to both sides of that seam so it's nice and smooth and it looks good. So cutting this in half allows me to sew the top half to the top of this loop and the bottom half to the bottom of the loop, remembering that those halves are going to be directly next to each other when this circle forms. The top one I'm going to have to sew correctly, and the bottom one will get done upside down. Actually, both should be done upside down. Sorry about that. So I'm going to take an internal line here, and I'm going to want it to be about 5. It doesn't have to be exact. So clicking here, almost halfway, coming down about 5, and I guessed pretty good. It's 5/18. Like I said, that's fine. I'm going to copy and paste this right off to the side. And actually, let's move it over a little bit. Let me delete that one. So I forgot to get my move tool, and I copied, or I made another line. Okay, so now I'm going to double click here, select both of them, Shift, Control and C, Control and V, and now I'm going to hold Shift and bring them straight down to this edge. Alright, so now remember, these are going to fold in, so these are going to be backwards. You can remember that because here where the two of them meet is going to be along the edge where these two meet. So with my sewing button, I will select this and go backwards to here. See top notch and lower notch? Here's the same thing, top notch and lower notch. I'm going to come all the way to this end, and we've got top notch and here we go again, lower notch. And you can actually sew these onto the same internal line. When you start to get 3 of these to one, it's really hard to manage. So if you find that you need 3 connected to the same one or more, I just make an extra internal line. You can just place them close to each other for other projects. Okay, so that's all sewn and ready. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape my loop. So getting my Create a Curve tool, I'm going to click just approximately in the middle and pull that straight down, approximately in the middle, and pull straight up. And now I have my first bow loop made. Selecting it, Control C, Control V, shifting and moving it to the side. I'm also going to right click here, and I'm going to flip this horizontally. I'm going to then come in here and I will begin to sew this one. So with the sewing, remember I go the top notch and I make it backwards, so I go to the bottom. Here I go to the bottom notch and put on the top, and then the same for these ones. So they just go opposite, that's all. It doesn't matter which one's the top and which is the bottom as long as they're opposite. Okay, so those are sewn. And actually I probably shouldn't have sewn those just yet, because what will happen is this piece won't dangle now. It'll actually fold up. But instead of just undoing all of this, let's just go ahead and sew it all, I guess, and we'll see how it works out. So I've got to sew, like I did this one to the bottom on the shirt. I'm going to go ahead and sew this internal line as well to the shirt. I will then sew the end of this center bow to this end. And I think we're about ready. So when I sync this, I'll wait for that progress to get done. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to move my pieces very close to where I want them. Having them closer to where you want them is just kind of helps you get a better result. Alright, so there's that. Now remember, this here will make this fabric pucker out this way, bringing these sides inward to form our loop. When I first hit this simulate button, this is going to go really crazy, but don't worry, we give it a minute and it starts to straighten itself out. As I said, it goes really crazy. It's trying to find its position where it's supposed to be and stuff. And that's not too bad. We do have one here that's inside out. This one turned out okay. Let's just move it around a little bit, see what we got. Whoops, and I'm almost pulling that through the wrong way. Okay, so that's pretty good. This one here is inside out, so let's just work it and see if we can't flip it through. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of pulling and you can actually work this through. Whoops, I went the wrong way with that pull. A little bit more and we're just about there. Okay, so far so good. We've got that going. Let's look and see if we can see what's going on with the center here. I know it looks a little confusing at first. Okay, but remember, do you see now? Let me see if I get a better view of it for you. Remember I said that the front of the fabric would pucker out? And it absolutely is. Do you see that? There's the that edge I was talking about. And actually, let's see if I can get a better view here. It looks like maybe, let's get that pulled over. Okay, so one of the things that we want to do is, you can see how corner cut all of this is. Well, that's all right. Sometimes, except looks very choppy on our little round bow, so we're going to change that in a minute. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Alright, so now comes the time to start tweaking this and actually get what we want. What I like to do is to select the pieces, so click on one and shift click on the others, and up here in the garment button, 3D garment, come down and click on the strengthen. And what that does is it makes these pieces kind of fold against gravity. You know, they start to take the shape that they were meant to take. It strengthens them so that they can be what you want them to be. So I've got the two bows going pretty decent. This one looks inside out now, so we'll want to try and fix that. We'll give it a few pulls and see if we can't get that the way it should be. So let me pull that back up there. There we go, that's pretty nice. Those turned out well. And now we've got to work on this center bow. Let's pull. Alright, let me do one more thing here. I'm going to try and... Okay, so I'm going to hit W, click, and pull. I'm just going to pin these for a second. And the reason I'm going to pin those is so that I can work on this bow with those, the center part, without those being in the way. And again, you just have to pull and work on that sometimes. There. Okay, so there's our center. And as you can see, we don't really need this line, but it does help us usually to start getting our shape. It's actually folding it back the other way. So let me go into my pattern window, and I'm going to select that internal line. Whoops. And delete it because we don't need that. Back into our front picture, and that's actually looking pretty good. So I can adjust these if I want to, kind of get that bow to sit exactly where I want. And simply by playing with the pattern piece, you can get this bow to have all kinds of different shapes. You can make it come flatter by simply maybe taking one of these. I mean, what if you were to have that a little smaller? And so, oh, actually the back of it seems to have gotten smaller. There we go. Down here you see it's flatter because it's turned the other way. I can go back here. Let's straighten this one out a little bit. And you should really be able to see how that's changed. There you go. So you can have a thinner bow if you want. Something else that's really easy to do is to create another triangle, or you can actually select this one and shift or duplicate it with Control C and V, and you can then use your transform pattern and rotate this. So let's say we rotate it here and bring it down here, and I can actually sew this here. Actually sew them together. Let me take that off of there. So let me delete that one. And I should have used the free sewing so I can go across the whole thing here. And you can make two of these so that here, See, what you have is this. Bring it this way. Whoops. Now I don't know what I do with it. There it is, all the way back there. Why am I having such a problem with this one? Okay, I do not know how I got it all the way over there. Wow, that's way back over there. Do you see that? That's pretty crazy. I do not know how I did that, but we just simply work it back to where we want it real quick. And it's a little bit difficult, but eventually we'll get this down where it belongs. Pretty funny. Okay, so I could have just sewn it, the simulation, and it would have pulled it in place too. But okay, so now I click simulate, and there we go. You'll see that this, not only did it copy, it copied the pin that we put on this side. So we have to select that pin and right click on it, and we can remove that pin, and then we can work this little ribbon down. If we want, we can pull it underneath so that it doesn't disturb the actual makeup of the bow. But again, you just have to work on it a little bit and get it to go where you want it to go. So there's the start of it anyways. And if you need to, you can also, grab a pin and pull it down into place. So let me put a pin here, and then I can remove this pin. So there we go. And you put on a couple of them and you'd be doing really good. Anyway, so that's how you make a bow here in Marvelous Designer. Have fun with it. Look for bow making with curves inside a blender. So you have a couple of ways of making them. Have fun.